Welcome to Sustainabuzz, a podcast brought to you by the Philippine Sustainability Reporting Committee. I'm your host, Dr. Arnel Uy, and with me,
I'm Benji. I'm the chair of the Philippine Sustainability Reporting Committee, or PSRC. PSRC will look after the adoption of ISSB sustainability disclosure standards in the Philippines and also provide comments on exposure draft issued by the ISSB. More importantly, we will issue practical guidance, implementation guidance, so that our Philippine reporters will be guided in their adoption of these new standards.
yes, that's correct, Benji. And today, we are fortunate to discuss with us the recently issued proposed roadmap by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And in our discussion today, we are fortunate to have three distinguished guests with us. So maybe we'll ask them to introduce themselves, say a little about your Sustainabuzz. So we'll begin with Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Vergel Dios from PLDT. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer and a mother of two. My two kids are quite happy that I've been assigned sustainability because they think that that's a meaningful assignment for their mom.
That's true, right? Meaningful is actually a nice buzzword for today, right? And of course, we have with us Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Ferareza, and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of PNA Grant Thornton, partner for advisory services, and I was actually given the task to integrate sustainability into our operations. And last year, we were successful, or this year, June of this year, we were successful in issuing our first sustainability report.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, Dr.
You're
Arnel.
not required, but you did it anyway.
That's
right.
That's right.
Okay,
It's
good.
walking the talk.
I
Dr.
know.
Arnel.
And it's a good message to our listeners out there, right?
Right.
Okay. So also with us, of course, is Mark.
Good morning. My name is Mark Mulingbayan. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of Filinvest Group and also Head of Enterprise Risk Management. I just realized I've been preparing sustainability reports for over 10 years already.
Wow.
I've been starting with the old framework, the GRI
GRI,
thing. So we have seen the evolution of these frameworks through time. And this new one, ISSB, is quite exciting, probably also daunting. so yeah. And that was a time when we started sustainability reporting. That was a time when it was still not required by the SEC.
There's no regulation yet.
None. Yeah, so it was all voluntary.
Yeah.
But where I was working with, we knew what the value of sustainability reporting is.
Very good point, Mark. Actually, that's what we want to try to unpack. Why companies do sustainability? Is it just to comply with regulations, or there's a higher purpose to it, like value creation?
Quite a lot, actually. Well, for many companies right now, let's face it, since 2019, when the SEC came out with a memorandum circular, many of them are actually just complying. But for those who were issuing sustainability reports from a long time ago, there was a reason for doing that. And many reasons, not just one. Some of them would publish that because they want to magnify their social license to operate. Some would do that to attract ESG funds or a certain type of capital provider. So there are many things. Some of them would do that partially because they want to attract talent that aligns with their mission, putting meaning into the work of those employees.
Well, kudos for that, Mark. That's actually going beyond compliance.
In the case of PLDT, I think we started our sustainability reporting also quite early, ahead of the SEC requirements. And it wasn't a walk in the park. I guess there were people who thought, that's not needed, that's not necessarily, why are you doing that? But in the course of time, I think the value of sustainability reporting became evident. And then because we have investors, in the early days, I used to be investor relations, right? In the early days of our conversations with investors, nobody asked about sustainability, even if we had a report. But nowadays, it's part of the conversation. And in fact, they will send you, a questionnaire with 10 different questions, lots of very specific questions. And I think the driver for it and the value of it is even our customers are asking about what are you doing about sustainability. So it's not just about reporting, compliance. It's the customers asking for it. As you said, the younger employees also want to work for a company that is doing something for the planet. So wala na yung it's all about sweldo. They want something also meaningful. So it's for talent attraction, customer retention, and then the stakeholders. I guess the compliance part is sometimes the way you sell it, but at the end of the day, it's very meaningful to have a sustainability report.
Well, I guess it's really about time because all these things started in the 19th century and it's already the 21st century and some people still think it's new, right? So,
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your story, PLDT and Filinvest. But in the country we have 270 publicly listed companies, and I don't think they are in the same level of maturity and readiness. So if you can share maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago when you started, how did you pitch the idea to the board or senior management? Because we also hear that many still see sustainability as just another cost.
Yes. Maybe I'll start. When sustainability reporting was started at PLDT, parang it was an independent effort on one side of finance and then put together with other teams in the company. And then in the beginning, nobody really cared about it, right? Maybe, okay, go ahead. For as long as you don't bother me, go ahead. But in the course of time, I think the value of the reporting was understood. And then those reports are very meaningful, right? It's the embodiment of what you're doing, not for the sake of preparing the report, but really because it tells a story. It completes the story of the company. Okay, you have operations, you have profits, etc., etc. But what about your impact? And what are you doing in that respect? So I think in the course of time, it started out maybe as a force through, and then what also helps for not everybody is a believer. Whatever you try to sell, there's always somebody who doesn't believe in it. But so maybe part of the beauty of using it as a compliance requirement is that for you who doesn't want to believe, we need to do this.
There's no choice.
But so that's for the non-believers. But for those who are who understand what it's about, they appreciate it, and it's easier and easier to prepare the sustainability report because people now want to highlight what they've done. They see in different parts of the organization, data privacy, cybersecurity, stakeholder management. They're wanting to push their stories forward because they want to share what are we doing and how do we think we've impacted our stakeholders. So it's like that, but it wasn't easy. But this one will help for those who refuse to believe.
So it's a good thing that you have a believer in your company who started it.
yes.
Right? Yes.
Mark?
Well, in the case of, how do I tell this story? Because 10 years ago when I was doing sustainability reporting, it was with a different employer. Maybe I'll start with that story. How did we start there on sustainability reporting? As I mentioned, I started on sustainability reporting sometime 2013, 2014. It's the first company in the Philippines to publish a sustainability report covering the year 2004.
Wow.
So how did it start? So I was not the one who started it. I just continued that journey in my time. But how did it start? It was from the board. It was a decision by the board to adopt sustainability as part of the identity of the company, because one of the institutional investors at the time said, why don't you consider sustainability reporting, because what you do has great impact. It's very much aligned. It's basically the realization at the board level of the alignment of social, and environmental, and business goals. You do your job well, you make people's lives better. Because that's what that company was all about. So that was it was very natural to come out with a sustainability report. What I just saw during my time is that the frameworks coming from GRI, GRI 3, 3.1, naging GRI 4, naging GRI standards, the evolution of what was expected to be reported, it changed through time. And now you have double materiality coming up. So it was an interesting evolution on how you tell the story based on what the expectations of the stakeholders or what the readers are expecting. No? Now, when I arrived in Filinvest 3 years ago, Actually, it's already by then it was already sustainability reporting was already an SEC requirement. What interested me in joining that group actually was a realization that they were already doing a lot of sustainability work. In fact, shared value hindi lang ESG, shared value narrative na hindi na ikukwento pa. So it's something that what we're trying to communicate now with our SRs is we create value. We are part of this nation building. We are part of helping the Filipino achieve their dreams. So, and it's a continuing narrative, as we mentioned. And this ISSB thing is going to be interesting because it's daunting, double materiality. How do we not lose the focus on impact? Because there's still a segment of our stakeholders that would be still expecting the same type of narrative from before, and how now you have a separate stakeholder that demands what's the financial impact on the business, diba? So how do you tell that story?
But you are already at that stage where you have experience for the past decades or at least years. But majority of the publicly listed companies and in the recently issued memorandum of SEC, the non-listed large national companies, they might not be in the same boat. So maybe it's good to share with us what steps were you able to take in order for you to reach where you are right now. Going back to perhaps the inception stage, you have now ISSB S1 and S2, and you're now supposed to use it by 2026 or 2027, depending on your tier.
Yeah.
So can you share perhaps some of the practical steps?
Yeah, and maybe before you answer, I'll add more questions, no? Because these questions are related, no? Because some companies would ask, do we need now to create sustainability offices? The second question, do we need to upskill our people in finance, no? Because there's expectation of connectivity between sustainability reports and financial statements. I guess your answers could help other companies also in their journey.
I think that's really a challenge. No? Even for a company like PLDT, I would like to think that there are resources behind us. It's still a struggle to come up with a sustainability report. Maybe sometimes because you're bigger, it's harder to get the data. Maybe if you're smaller, maybe easier. But I think, where do you really start? I think when my journey in sustainability, when I was with investor relations, we had a meeting with this European company, with our seniors in the meeting, but they started with one question: what is your purpose? I think it all begins from there. And if that narrative about your purpose is defined, and then you ask yourselves, what are material to our stakeholders? So parang you're trying to lay the framework to what your roadmap will be, diba? But it really starts with, what is the company's purpose? What are the material topics to your stakeholders? And then the thing that I think we struggled with in the beginning was iba-iba yung understanding about sustainability. There were pockets who thought, it's about tree planting, it's about charity work and CSR. Diba? So if you're on different levels of understanding, how are you going to implement something? So I think there's a large part of the journey that starts with, we have to be on the same level of understanding about what sustainability is. And then that anchors back to purpose, what's material. If it's material to you to plant trees, if you have to protect the watershed, that's fine.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, it's not about trees, right? It's about whatever's material to your business. So there. And then I think in some cases, unfortunately, you need help. You cannot do it alone. You can study it, but might take a little longer. So I think that's where experts come in. You get them to help you. Do you need a sustainability office? It will help to have that, because if you have a day job on top of sustainability,
it's impossible.
It's kind of heavy. But do you need like 10 people? I don't think so. Hindi naman. But finance is a good partner. Your CFO is a good partner to have. And then I think at the end of the day, for example, the climate scenario analysis, if you are able to translate the results of that analysis into how it impacts the business, then you have natural list. Then they ask you, because it affects them. part of the sustainability role is may bago kaming kliyente. They have questions on sustainability. They won't get that account unless you are able to show. Then you have another natural partner.
Right.
So I think what it is you need to get on the same page as to the definition, and then you have to embed it in the business. Hindi siya extraneous to the business, because and then it has to mean something to the person you're talking to, because that's what they do. What is the role of sustainability in what you do?
Yeah.
You have a natural partner. So I think that's where you start.
Yeah. And upskilling probably it
upskilling,
started there because
yes.
you have to face the clients. And
Yes,
you
yes.
improve
But the
that you're
story,
capable.
and I think the important thing about how we got people to allow us to kind of push sustainability is ask the question, how does this help you do your job? If you're data privacy, if you're cybersecurity, if you're the business unit, how does this help revenues come in? If you're in finance, how does this help you cut costs? Oh, renewables, cheaper option, savings. By the way, you also help reduce GHG reduction. So you have to put it in the language of the business unit.
Right.
Because if you're just talking about nebulous concepts, ay ano na naman yan, di ba? Parang uso na naman yan, di ba? You will go away.
Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah.
meaningful to them, parang sila pa yung minsan yung kumakatok, di ba? Can you
Yes.
help us with this? So yun, some maybe practical tips from somebody who's had a long and hard journey.
Yeah, Mel, I really like what you said, that you have to put it in the language of business. And I think that's what IFRS is all about. No? You have to make sense of ESG disclosure that is understandable to investors and lenders and probably the board of directors. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's a very important point about IFRS.
Yeah. And that's also true. I like what you said about perhaps the steps, if I may recall. You start with the why, the
Yes,
purpose, the
right.
why sustainability is important to you. And that has to be addressed.
I
I
like
think
that.
for our
Yeah.
listeners, if you're starting your journey or you are in the middle of your journey and you don't know where to go,
Yes, yes.
compliance is one way to make you believe. But hopefully, your purpose will make you one, right?
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
But purpose alone is not enough, right? Because you want to make sure that you are in the same page.
Yes.
So I think the second step that you shared with us was about having to have a common language, what sustainability is all about.
Right.
So that requires help, assistance, that's good. But
Yes.
conversation starts there.
Yeah, how about Mark?
Well, I'll just paraphrase everything. She said. Business case. There
Business
has to be
case.
a business
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
If there's a business case, you will have the buy-in of management.
Right.
It
That's
makes sense, di ba? So it's just establish a business case for all of those material topics that you want to work on. Then it comes naturally.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there's this new concept. I guess for finance people, we're very used to ROI, return on investment. But because of these changes in sustainability, we're now using return on value.
Your
Yeah.
Now, because the return can come in different forms. No, customer
Correct.
value. You said
Yes.
loyalty,
True.
stickiness.
Yes.
Also, employee value, the
Yes.
engagement that you generate with your team,
Yeah.
and also access to capital. I guess that's common nowadays.
Yes. Speaking of value, let me add, actually when our former CEO, Marivic Espanyo, said, let's do sustainability. Initially, we thought we'd put it under our people strategy because it's more of like the purpose is to engage our people, because we believe that having a very good engagement with our people can actually translate to a very good value to our client. Happy clients, happy people, happy clients. Yes. So that was the thing. And then we asked ourselves again, why? And then suddenly it shifted. How about let's put it in our transformational strategy? So it became our part of our TX strategy. And then, okay, now that it's in our TX, we have to prepare our sustainability report so that we can tell our story. So Chris, you are in charge. So, there is the upskilling that's needed. So I had to read and watch a lot of YouTube, talking about people talking about sustainability, research about climate, research about what is this what is this stranded asset all about? What is this physical risk? What is this transition risk? and then how are we going to do this? And then you know what? After starting the work, we realize we've been doing sustainability ever since.
That's correct.
It's just a
That's
matter of putting it together in one
Yeah.
paper, one document
That's
to
correct.
tell your story, how you've been taking care of your people, how you've been taking care of your clients, how you've been complying with regulations such that the government or the regulators will be, happy as well. Right?
Wow.
All the stakeholders around it.
Chris, you mentioned about transformation.
Right.
And I guess that's one outcome that we want to see in sustainability. Because I think we all want to understand that sustainability is not about reporting alone.
Exactly.
I guess reporting is just the
Exactly.
byproduct of the
Byproduct,
things
yes.
that you do. And with that, that brings me to my question to Mark and Mel. What sort of transformation did you see in your organization?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start off. I think when people understood that sustainability is not a foreign concept, that it's,
That's true.
you've already
That's true.
been doing it in some
Mm.
form or fashion. I think what it is for many people, it's become an additional meaning to the work that they're doing. And I think one of the things that we encountered as a team, sometimes you think, oh my gosh, how are we going to sell this idea to the team? The acceptance of the concept of being a steward of the planet, of taking care of customers, they are concepts that are embraced very easily.
Yes.
So in that sense, it's an easy sell. And then particularly at the younger levels, I think at middle manager levels, there's a need for a change in mindset because they've been trained all this time. If you calculate a project investment, you have to look at ROI, pure return on investment, pure profit, pure ganun lang, di ba? If you now have a business case, for example, up for approval, where you're checking whether you will invest in an ICE, combustible engine, or or hybrid, for example, the analysis is skewed towards what is traditional analysis, profit, IRR. But it doesn't take into account the impact to the environment. So
Nice.
there needs to be a change in mindset. So it's an
Yes.
ongoing work in progress for us to try to maybe change the way people have been trained to look at projects to include another impact. What is this impact socially, environmentally,
Yes.
perhaps? But I tell you, at PLDT, we're still starting that journey. So, but it needs to be done. And the nice thing is the material you're working with, the younger generation at PLDT.
They are very passionate
They're
about
very
it.
open. They understand. Sometimes they're like, but when we presented it, it's just like this. We looked at the GHG reductions and they did not accept that. So, but I said, because you presented it as a concept that's very, almost like this. But if you say, as a result, there's a reduction in OPEX and therefore GHG, that's music to their ears.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
change the mindset. And maybe that's the challenge to schools. Maybe to Dr. Uy, parang we need to be able to teach that financial analysis, for example, needs to take into account other things. I'm not saying hug the trees and save the planet kind of thing.
That's
But
true.
like that, in the traditional analysis of a traditional vehicle and a hybrid vehicle, electric vehicle, how do you take into account the impact of a cleaner environment as a result? That's not in your IRR,
Yes.
but that is definitely a cost. If there's a carbon tax eventually that's
Eventually.
implemented,
Yeah.
how do you reflect that in the decision-making process that is traditional today? So yun lang, some of the things that we're work in progress yan, some of the things we're doing at PLDT.
It's the same with Filinvest. It's a work in progress because when I started with that group, they were at and still are at different levels of maturity on understanding sustainability. One of the first things we had to communicate to everybody was this is not philanthropy.
Yes.
This is this idea of CSR is medyo outdated na ng konti, di ba? So we had to explain what is the difference between corporate social investments. Well, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that the opportunity for impact cannot be scaled up, right? ESG, which is largely risk management, no?
Yeah.
Because if you take it from the perspective of managing risk, then they will say, oh, okay, there's a business case, a natural business case for that. And of course, you're creating shared value. You know? And this is where the challenge is, especially for the strategy people to recognize na, okay, how do we magnify our impact using the core business through innovations and all that? So, but not all businesses, not all subsidiaries have the same understanding. It can be a struggle because again, you have to speak initially in the language that they can understand. But so it has to be well, one of the early successes with some of the subsidiaries that we were talking to is that they realized, sabi nila, do we need a sustainability officer for our company? And I said, what are your material topics? Isn't there a natural owner for each of those material topics?
Correct.
And what you do there is part of the business. It's embedded.
Right.
You don't need a sustainability officer. You just probably need a committee for you to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually everyone's responsibility.
Yeah. So it doesn't. You don't need to have create a separate department. Maybe for data gathering and setting the, codifying how data is collected, validated. Maybe that there will be a special function for that. But in terms of delivering the commitments to each of those material topics, it's already there. There are people already assigned to that.
So on that note, maybe let's pause because the buzz will continue. So watch out for the next episode of The Buzz as we continue our conversation with our distinguished guest.